This is The Real Truth with Tommy Spina, and I'm going back to where we started and focus on our Constitution, the rule of law, and the separation of powers clause that make up what makes us so different from any other country on the globe. We're struggling these days, and I would like to have constitutional law experts explain how we got here and how do we get back, not to where we started, but somewhere in between where we were and where we are now. I hope you enjoy this series. Good day, everyone. This is The Real Truth. I'm Tommy Spina, and today's guest is Bruce Rogow. I do not know Bruce personally. However, I was introduced to him from some friends of mine down in South Florida, and Bruce is a constitutional law expert of sorts, has been to the Supreme Court of the United States a number of times, has worked on so many cases, I cannot list them all, that were of constitutional significance. And as you know, as my listeners, I started out my podcast taking a peek at things involving the First Amendment, the freedom of press, freedom of speech, the checks and balances, the branches of government. So we're going to go back to where we started. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tommy. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Tell us just briefly a little bit about yourself and what makes me make this call to you.
Well, I started practicing law in Mississippi in 1964 and 5 and 6.
Lord.
Representing civil rights workers in Jackson and throughout Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana. And when I left there in 1966, I came to Miami and helped run the legal services program in Miami, representing poor people. And along the way, I ended up teaching at the University of Miami, ended up helping start the law school at Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, teaching various federal areas of law and practicing along the way. So I had the benefit of a lot of litigation during all that time. And I think that I represented doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, rich men, poor men, beggarmen, thieves, literally. I represented the Seminole Tribe and the chief of the Seminole Tribe. I represented David Duke. So I represented the Ku Klux Klan, and I represented all the civil rights demonstrators in the 1972 conventions in Miami Beach. So I've had a long line of very eclectic kinds of clients, and a lot of the times the issues were constitutional issues. And I had the good fortune to have 11 arguments in the Supreme Court and made some law in some of those cases and lost some of the cases too. Probably the ones that some of your listeners might be most interested in was the Two Live Crew case. I represented Two Live Crew and all the obscenity litigation and represented them in the copyright case in the Supreme Court, where they basically stole Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman and made it Harry Woman, and I won that one 9-0. So it's been an interesting career that I've had the good fortune to have. Now I'm still practicing, although people say, when will you retire? And I say, well, I'll be retired. Well, I don't know. I'll be retired through disacclaim. When people stop calling, I'll be retired. so this call doesn't count, but you know, it has been fun, and I've enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed my clients, and I've represented Donald Trump. I tried the Roger Stone criminal trial a few years ago, and it has been an interesting conglomeration of clients representing all different segments, really, of the population. And here I am today sitting in North Carolina, where we have a home and are living here full time.
What part of North Carolina?
We're in Brevard. Actually, we're in Cedar Mountain, which is about 45 minutes east of Asheville and near Hendersonville in Brevard County seat. Do you know it?
No, I know that my daughter wants to move to Raleigh, and she's been looking for a home there. And everyone I talk to about any part of North Carolina, which David Rudolph was on my show.
Mm-hmm.
You know David, I'm sure. Joe Cheshire is in Raleigh, and David is in Charlotte. However, North Carolina seems like a beautiful state, both geographically and from my perspective, politically, seems to be well balanced and progressive with its focus on good schoolings and good schools and things that I think appeal to people that are trying to build a family. So I just hear good things about the Carolinas altogether now.
Well, come visit it.
I will. I get up to Asheville. I was just having a conversation with someone about the Grove Park Inn and the history that it represents. But let's not talk about that. Let's find out how we got where we are, constitutionally speaking, and where do we go, or how do we get the words that ring in my ears, we the people, back engaged in governance. I think the plan of our founding fathers was for the people to play a role in what goes on. I don't feel that I'm playing much of a role of what's going on in our country.
Well, I think that...
Why do I feel that way?
I can't speak for why you feel that way. I think I know why you may be frustrated. But, the trouble with the law is it's just a bunch of words. And while we take the words literally and think we understand what they mean, it's pretty amazing if you think about how these words, just a handful of words, have caused so much discussion and dissent and disagreement. I mean, you start with the First Amendment: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or abridging the freedom of speech. No law abridging the freedom of speech and assembly, but we know that there are laws that can bridge the freedom of speech and assembly. I mean, you can't cry fire in a crowded theater and say, I've got freedom of speech. I always used to joke that how about crying theater in a crowded fireplace? Can you do that? Probably you can do it. But the point is that it's language, and language is subject to and suspect to different views of it. Simple words. I mean, I listened yesterday to the Supreme Court arguments in the Mississippi election receipt of vote case, and the case really turns on what does election day mean? What did election day mean in 1845? And what did election day mean in the Constitution? And one of the justices said, election day means a certain day, like birthday, Memorial Day. I mean, it was so interesting. Listening to the argument. And now there's a case that the Supreme Court is going to take about what arrive in the United States means. Does it mean within the United States? Or what if you're in Mexico under the Trump theory of trying to limit people coming in, and you're applying for citizenship, or you're applying actually not for citizenship, but you're applying for refugee status because you're afraid of being killed in your home country, but you're in Mexico because there was a holding period where people had to stay in Mexico. So have those people arrived? I mean, that's the beauty of the law. You can, I don't want to say make it do what you want, but it is subject to all this language is subject to different takes on it and different views on it. So is it frustrating? Yes, only if you're the lawyer. If you're the lawyer, this is great exercise to try to figure this out and work with these words. If you're the victim, or if you're the defendant, it's much more difficult, and in civil cases too. So I think one shouldn't be frustrated. One just has to begin with the notion that language is subject to different perceptions of how it should be applied. And of course, when you say we the people, well, we the people elected Donald Trump. Not all the people, obviously. And so the people who disagree with some of the approaches that Trump has taken, they have a right to be heard. Although it is interesting how heavy-handed the Trump administration can be in trying to limit the right to be heard. Jimmy Kimmel, by the way, if you want to have a breath of fresh air, watch Jimmy Kimmel every night or on YouTube in the morning, and you can see what he does and how he can skew the language that's being used. So I think you have to be optimistic, really, and understand that we're in a very unique situation.
Yeah, I said before, I'm tired of living in unprecedented times. But speaking of words, are we at war?
Well,
did our executive chief put us in a war on his own without talking to anybody else about it? He calls it a war.
He does. And just a great example, Tommy, of the business about words. And so, yes, we're certainly, it seems to me that if you're in Iran, you feel like you're in a war. If you're in some of these countries that are receiving missiles, they think they're in a war. And yet, of course, Congress did not declare war and had no hand in this. But that's happened before. There have been these kind of excursions that have gotten away without paying attention literally to what the Constitution demands. I think you have to just shake your head about some of these things, and yet clearly we are in a war, an undeclared war. But what's interesting is you can mark whether or not we're in a war or not by the stock market. I mean, it's amazing what happened the other day. I looked at the stock market and it was down, 400 or 500 points early in the morning before the market opened. And then Trump at 6 o'clock in the morning said, we're
war's
going
over.
The war's over, and the market went up 1,100 points. So,
well, it's currently down 62 points. So I don't know what's being said outside my office right now, but there's certainly something being said. So what about this notion I feel and have been told that our representatives, that we the people put in office, are not speaking with one another. Even the Republicans are not talking to each other. They're certainly not talking to the Democrats. The Democrats are not talking to the Republicans, and therefore we're in this situation with TSA, and we can't seem to get through it because nobody wants to give an inch. And there's a lot of fear of retaliation if you go against the executive, chief executive. So do we just ride this out? Is there ever a breakthrough? Has this happened before? I went back and read the Declaration of Independence. I even wrote an op-ed piece about it. Things haven't changed since then. I mean, we're still talking about the same words, talking about words. They were talking about tariffs back then. They were talking about taxes back then. And then almost 10 years later, more than 10 years later, we come up with a Constitution that I think is an evolutionary document, if that's a word. I think it has evolved from what it was intended to be on day one to where it is now. And I think it was a document that was intended to be amended and has been. Although, relatively speaking, course, I come from Alabama, where we have a constitution with I think, 175 amendments. We only have 27, I think, in our United States Constitution. But I struggle with the balance of power and the overlap and the media. And are the media another branch of government de facto? Because we don't know what to believe. It's the way I see it. So I choose to believe nothing.
Well, you know what's the saying? What do you believe?
Ignorance is bliss.
Well, not so much that, but you know the saying when the man gets caught with a woman in bed and he says to his wife, "Do you believe me or do you believe your lying eyes?" So here, I mean, the eyes aren't lying here. This is very unsatisfactory, I think, in terms of the responsibility of the elected Congress and not being able to get something done, not talking with one another. It is hard for me to believe and to accept that some people believe some of the stuff that is being said and done. In fact, one of the points that I made to a friend who was very upset about what was happening, I said, I think that the person who has the strongest voice, and I'm surprised that it's not being heard quite as well as it should be, is the Pope. Thinking about who has the power of voice that reflects goodness and honesty and caring and things like that. And this Pope, because he's from Chicago and has some sense of America, has spoken out well. And so I take some hope from that. I'm not religious. But I think that the Pope has been a leader in trying to bring to people's minds the need to take care of one another. And that really is part of what the Congress, with the Declaration of Independence was about, and the Constitution too. But I think so. Am I optimistic? You know, cautiously optimistic. Living where I do in North Carolina, this is a Republican county, although the city, Brevard, is heavily Democratic. And when I went to vote for the first time after I moved to North Carolina a couple of years ago, the first time I went in to vote in our small community center, the woman who came in behind me, I knew had been in Washington on January 6th. And I turned around when she came in right behind me. And I said, "Shirley, I didn't know your civil rights had been restored so quickly." And she just laughed and said, "I'm here to cancel your vote." And, you know, that's the kind of attitude that's a good attitude. You can live with one another. Luckily, we're fortunate enough so that we don't face the kind of hardships that a lot of people are facing in the country. On the whole, I think that money plays too much of a role in this country in everything. Everything is measured by economic success, it seems, and that's a dangerous aspect of living in a society where people share responsibilities.
Well, what I read another thing yesterday. You talked about listening in on the Supreme Court arguments. So since last probably 6 years, the emergency docket, I will give it its respect, has increased in volume tremendously. I don't think that's a secret. And now we've got a new little wrinkle that I'd never even thought of. There's pre-petitioning for cert in certain Supreme Court cases. And for those of you that don't understand what I just said, cert is an abbreviation for certiorari, which when you take a case to the U.S. Supreme Court, you have to ask them to take it. You have to do all the work as if they were going to take it, but they can very easily send you a one-line letter and say, nah, we're not going there. So now we're leapfrogging from district court, bypassing my good friend, Circuit Judge Bill Pryor, and headed straight to the Supreme Court. You're aware of that, I trust.
Right.
What's happening with that? I mean, I just feel like it's being politicized because of the dynamic and the makeup of our current Supreme Court.
Well, a couple of things. One, Judge Pryor is right about the volume of litigation. This is that if you appreciate great lawyering, some of what you're seeing from the Trump administration raising issues that had always just been accepted is, if you're looking at it objectively, is fantastically creative lawyering. And they're presenting issues that now, I mean, the birthright case, which is going to be decided soon, just presenting issues that were never presented before. So at one level, I appreciate the fact that there's such imaginative lawyering. I may not like a lot of the issues and the way they're presenting them, but it's kind of interesting to watch it. And so as the cases go through the district court level, and a lot of them have gone through the Court of Appeals level too, but they're not final yet. And that's the trouble with the law. There's a whole process of fact finding and everything else. These cases take a long time. And so when the court basically allows the government to do that which is an issue without there being a full hearing on it, they are allowing the government to get its way. And the court, except for the three dissenters have been pretty consistent about not letting these things go by without comment. But their comment isn't enough. So no question, the court is loaded towards the conservative side. Although the tariff cases obviously showed you that they didn't rubber stamp what the president does. So while it's a shadow docket because it's not fully briefed and argued and all of that stuff, it's the nature of the process. And to the credit, and this is where I have an optimistic view, if you look at the district court judges, I mean, there have been, I think, 150 cases brought against the Trump against Trump's policies. And the district court judges have been very good, very vigilant. And most of the Court of Appeals, especially in the Northeast, have been. California, for the most part, has been. The Fifth Circuit, our circuit, is a harder circuit because it's a conservative circuit. Judge Wilkinson in the Fourth Circuit really took the president to task in one of his decisions, came out of North Carolina. So a lot is happening. The trouble, of course, is it all ends up in the Supreme Court, and they only take 70 or 80 cases. Years ago, they took 120, 130. So they're very picky and choosy. You're certainly right about they can just say no. But I think that the shadow docket is a problem. I mean, calling it the shadow docket, you don't get full opinions. And so you just get a court order here and there. And for the most part, the court orders are letting the president. But here's the problem, I think. There's a belief in the power of the executive. Remember, we have these three branches, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And there's a tendency
and the media.
And well, yes, I mean, I think for the, I pick up Fox. I take a look at Fox now and then to see what they're doing. But I think that what you have is the one branch seems incapable of mustering any real energy, the legislative branch. The judicial branch has been very very active and very forthright. And then you get to the Supreme Court, which is the ultimate judicial branch, and it certainly weighted in favor of viewing the executive power as being larger than I think most of us thought it should be. So I think that's really the issue. The three branches and the executive power, once they gave immunity to a president for doing pretty much anything he wanted to do, that sent the message that there is great power in the executive branch, and Trump and his lawyers are exploiting that.
I do think the district court judge level, and so for those that don't know how it works, in our federal system of judiciary, we have a district court. If you don't like what happens there, in most instances, you can take an appeal to the next level, which is referred to as the circuit court level. And if you don't like what happens there, you can take an ask to the Supreme Court of the United States. Personally, especially locally, I think, and what I've seen and what I've read around the country, for the most part, district court judges are trying to get it right with what tools they have to work with. I really think that. Now, there are some exceptions. One, I believe, is sitting right there down the street from your office in Fort Lauderdale. But I could be wrong about that. I don't know her. But nevertheless, I do think district court judges are trying to do what the precedent says they should do. Precedent, not president, to clarify that word. Do you feel that way about what's happening in these 130 some odd cases that are pending?
Absolutely. I think that it really it's a badge of honor and credit to the district court judges and, for the most part, the Court of Appeals judges to try to get it right, following the precedents that are out there and following the language that's out there. No question about it. I've over 62 years of practicing law. I've never felt like a case was stolen from me by a judge, any judge, state judge, federal judge. I think that they try to do the right thing according to the law, not the right thing according to the way they feel emotionally. And so that gives me great faith in the process. The trouble, of course, is
me as well.
Part of this, yeah. I think that's the experience of most lawyers. But the Supreme Court is a unique institution, and it's, I don't want to call it highly political, but obviously the members of the court are chosen by a political officer, somebody who has won a national election, and Ginsburg. Part of the problem here is when Justice Ginsburg didn't retire when she could have retired, a seat was lost because Trump became president, and he got to fill that seat. But that's the nature. It's been that way from the beginning. Who's going to be on the court, and what are their feelings? And there are surprises. Obviously, some people were chosen. Earl Warren was a Republican and from California. And remember, years ago, it was impeach Earl Warren because conservative people didn't like where he was going. So is this something new? The truth is, it is something new. You're on to something, Tommy. This is new. This power, the executive branch power that Trump is using. Is it in his mind? Has he created this? He's not a lawyer and he's not steeped in the law, but he has people around him who really have taken a close look and said, here's what we can exploit, and they're exploiting it. And obviously the electorate voted for him, although some of the stuff, he said no war, and now we have a war. So do you believe what he says, or do you believe what he does? That's the choice you have to make in every kind of relationship. But it's an interesting time. So I think that from the point of view of the general citizenry, most of them are not so much daily affected by the things that he's doing. But on the law side, it is a very busy time, no question about it.
Well, they're not affected by it because they don't have a bomb landing at their mall or at their high school, where the Middle East, every day is a new adventure, I'm sure, about what's coming in today. And we're so far removed from the actual destruction on so many levels and the lives that are lost, not just leaders of countries, but innocent citizens whose lives are being taken. So for what? Were we in imminent fear of attack? If we were, nobody told me about it. I never saw it coming. It didn't get reported by the press, by the fourth branch of government. Social media is also involved in this whole debacle we're involved in these days to a tremendous degree. But I don't know. Feel free to comment on what I just said.
Well, clearly, we certainly don't fear the imminent threat, and I'm kind of concerned about Israel obviously has felt for a long time an imminent threat, and so did we get drawn into something that maybe we didn't need to get drawn into? I don't know. I mean, I think that what you have is 47 years of Iran terrorizing parts of the world and threatening. Yes, it's not a very good regime in terms of being friendly and loving, but I don't know enough to say I agree with you. I didn't see an imminent threat. It was kind of a surprise, and I didn't see any preparation for this country, by the president in terms of making it something that we needed to do. So I'm hesitant about backing this kind of attack. And that's why I keep coming back to the Pope, because the Pope likes to save lives. The Pope, if you're an anti-abortion people, you believe in saving lives. If you believe that a fetus is a life, and I respect people who believe it. I don't believe it, but I think that caring about the effect upon people is a critical aspect of living a good life. And this is troubling to me, no question about it. But again, it's, we're not on the inside. I certainly don't have confidence in a guy like Pete Hegseth being first of all, naming it the Department of War bothered me to begin.
There are those words. There's those words again.
Yeah, right. Department of War. So this is I can't wait to read in 20 years what the books will be about this time and how they assess it in the future from a perspective that we can't envision quite now. But is it unusual? And the lack of respect for other countries, I think, is troubling to me too. I mean, the way he's treated our former allies, and it's an unusual thing. But let me say this: the first time I met Donald Trump was when he wanted to meet James Billy, who was the chairman of the Seminole Tribe, because he wanted to get involved in Indian gaming. And there's a book called Revenge of the Pequods that gives me credit for starting Indian gaming in the United States because of the litigation that I brought. It wasn't my idea, actually. It was the idea of a client of mine who was a gambler. And he said to me, "Can the Indians do bingo without pot limits?" And I never thought about that. And I
We
took
have
a look.
it. We have it here.
Well, and this is how it started. I took a look, and in Florida they had charitable bingo, and charitable bingo like a $10 pot limit. And on the reservation, I knew that if it wasn't illegal in the state, you could do it on the reservation without the pot limits. And so I told my client, his name was Jack Cooper, yes, they can do it. I brought the chairman of the tribe, the chief of the tribe, down to see Jack. He co-signed a note for $5 million to build the original bingo hall. And that's what has led to Indian gaming all around the country. The National Indian Gaming Regulatory Act grew out of that. And so this law is kind of organic, and doors open and things happen, and it certainly changed the gambling world in this country, because that actually led to all kinds of gambling opening up besides just Indian gaming. The poly market that's opening now, where you can bet on what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you just have to be ready to accept that this world, and you're right about the media, this world is so radically different from, the first one. BlackBerry was the first kind of mobile phone. You had to carry it around. And now, we're talking on our handheld devices. So it's amazing to watch. And I think you just have to be amazed by the imagination and creativity of people. You don't have to agree, but it's there. It's an exciting time.
Well, you take my cynicism and turn it intellectually into an exciting time. Even though I told Judge Pryor I was feeling more optimistic, I am feeling more optimistic after this conversation, because your perspective is so refreshing that the three branches of government are still in existence. And even though they may be going through a period of, I'll use the word dysfunction, there's still three branches of government. And that was one of the primary principles of our founding fathers, was to create it that way so that not one individual would have all the power without having to answer to someone else. So,
and that's what, and the tariff case, I knew from the beginning that the tariff case was going to be the real test. So, I mean, am I disappointed? Yes, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the attitudes. I'm disappointed in the treatment of others. I'm disappointed at the kind of language that's being used to convey whatever the thoughts are from the executive branch. It's disappointing. It doesn't fit with the image that I have of being presidential and addressing the needs of the whole society, not just one segment of the society. But and I try actually to think about what I was telling you before about Trump, because when I first met him, I didn't know what to expect. Let me tell you, he was engaged, he was respectful to the chairman of the tribe, and I've represented him in several times afterwards. He took out a full-page ad in an ACLU award book that I got saying, "Bruce defends my civil rights too." I have had nothing but good relations with him. And I think that what I did see was that the people that worked for him couldn't say no to him. And so one of the several situations that I had where I said, this is what we have to do, and he did it. But the people, he doesn't, if you're working for him, you have to fall in line. And I think that's what's happened here. And of course, in his first administration, some people didn't fall in line and they were fired.
Jeff Sessions, for example.
Yeah. And so, but again, it's human nature. It is. He certainly is communicative. He certainly, is every day is a press conference, and it certainly makes it interesting to watch, and certainly creates grist for the comedians to make fun of, which is a very healthy kind of thing. I mean, I think if Jimmy Kimmel were taken off the air, that would be a very, very bad sign. And he was taken off the air briefly, but you saw what happened. He's back on the air.
What about Colbert? He's being taken off.
Yeah, because CBS, for whatever reason, has the economic interest too in trying to get the merger going and everything else.
See,
but he'll be back.
That bothers me. That fear of retaliation is modifying behavior, even though the behavior may not be appropriate behavior under the circumstances. Fear shouldn't necessarily drive decision making. I mean, it can be a part of it, but right now, I think everybody's afraid to not be on Team Trump.
Well,
but we have 75 million people that are on Team Trump.
Well, no question about it. But look at the law firms. I mean, that was disappointing when the law firms
very disappointing.
Yeah. And but look at if you look at all the law firms that support Perkins Coie and the firms that were banned by Trump, it gives you a good feeling. I mean, the Paul Weiss firm, right away trying to make amends and promise to give pro bono work to the government and avoid that. I think that they rue that day now. They should have stood up to it. But the fact is that most of the law firms did stand up to it. And again, we come back to money. That's the economics of all of this is what's so troubling to me. That the power that he has over corporations and law firms and stuff and states and countries has to do with money. It's all about the economics of it. Treat me right, and I won't put an extra 20% tariff on your country. And the whole economic power is easily abused, and I think has been abused. And that Liberation Day, when he had that big chart with all of the tariffs to be on it, but the Supreme Court pulled the cord on it, said, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to feel like, okay, it's not an open field to do whatever he wants to do, and he's been cut back in a lot of issues. But and now this is being too intellectual about it, but thinking about the lawyers who found these openings and used the executive power is a very interesting phenomenon. That to me is one of the things that I can't wait to read what some of the great folks who are watching this will write about.
Yeah, I guess it will be our grandkids. In the history books, I do travel across the Atlantic occasionally, and I have a trip coming up, but I'm feeling very unpopular amongst most of the European nations. Are we that despised, or are we, constitutionally speaking? I don't know if you can speak constitutionally to this issue, but I just feel like we've severed relationships that we've had for centuries since 2016, with a break in the middle. Should I be afraid?
Where are you going?
I'm going to England, but I'd wanted to go to Germany, but we got bases in Germany, and it's reachable. So I don't know. I think London, I think they put on a show for the prez when he went over there, and that was tariff time. And they didn't want the tariffs, and I don't think they got the tariffs, or at least not to the degree that some countries did. But I feel like London's a safe place to go, although it's a hotbed. It's a large Muslim population there of activity. So I don't know.
I think if you smile and be Tommy, you will have a very good time, and nobody will hold against you.
Well, that has worked for 75 years. A smile and a shoe shine will get you a long way.
That's right.
You have any closing remarks as we sign off? If you could impart to my listeners.
Well, more, to you, because I have some sense of you, and not to all of your listeners. But I think that one should be critical. One should be optimistic. One should be intellectually challenged by watching what's happened. And you're watching really the kind of the greatest show on earth. How it turns out, I think it'll turn out well in the end. I'm not sure when I say the end, I don't mean the end, but I think it'll turn out well in the long run. I think what's interesting, and this I kind of know from watching Trump, I think that the stock market actually is the best indicator in terms of how Trump will act. When the stock market is bad, Trump uses that as his measurement of how he is being perceived and what he's doing. This is just the way I think the measurement. I remember when he first got elected, he said the stock market's up 1,000 points. I kind of view that as a way for him to measure how he's being perceived in the country. And to the stock market's credit, it went down over this war in Iran. So the feelings that you had about, were we an imminent threat? Should we be doing this? Obviously, the people that he respects, which not the people, but the institution, sent him a message. So my view is look at the stock market, hope that it goes up. And if the stock market's going up, then he's moving in the right direction. Not in all ways, but even with the ICE business now, I mean, he has toned down. Apparently, Susie Wiles has told him this wasn't so good going after it with Kristi Noem and all that. So he's changed. He's brought about a bit of a new direction, hopefully. And the Pope, certainly to me, is still a big marking point to be positive about. So be positive. Go to, take care of your kids. Take care of your grandchildren, go to work every day, have a smile on your face, be optimistic, but be critical and be aware and have fun.
And that is the real truth. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you spending time with us, sharing your thoughts with us. Don't be surprised if I don't ask you back as the stock market moves around. It has doubled down since we've been talking. So it's sort of weird to think of the measuring stick of what our executive is using is the stock market number, making a determination of what is going to come out of his mouth. However, that seems to be what you think is his guiding light. So we will watch it. I will watch it. I'll watch it anyway. Thank you so much for being with us. This is The Real Truth. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Tommy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today on The Real Truth. My name is Tommy Spina. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I hope you will follow or subscribe to my podcast and listen in to the next episode. If you found it valuable, please take a moment to rate it and review it. It helps us to reach more listeners that care about the issues that matter. Share it with a friend. Stay engaged and remember, the truth matters. I'll see you next time.